Unbeaten Tracks in Japan, Isabella Bird, 碇ヶ関、青森県 August the 2nd. Our difficulties have become greater. The rain hasn't stopped in 6 days. I've been stuck in 碇ヶ関 because of terrible storms. Everything's either wet or green with mildew. My clothes, bed, sheets, bag, books, and boots. We're so close to the Tsugaru Strait, but we cannot go. The local people are calling on the gods to save them from these unnatural rains. The day before yesterday was the most interesting of my journey. We left Shirasawa at noon because it looked like it would stop raining. The scenery is beautiful with glorious cedar trees all around, but the rain had made the streams and rivers so wild that it was almost impossible to cross. There were mudslides and landslides on the mountains. Logs and entire trees came rushing down the rivers. Then, at the top of the pass that separates Akita and Aomori-ken, it began to storm. The roads were either washed away or totally blocked by fallen trees and rocks. A bridge we needed to cross had been washed away. Things began to look very bad, but our 3 Mago were skilled and brave. They tied me to the pack horse, and we forded the river many times. The Mago were up to their shoulders in water. Using axes, they cut stairs out of the river banks for the horses. But the rain came down so hard, the stairs quickly got washed out. The horses stumbled so much that I once fell off and hit my head. The river was so wild at our last crossing that I admit I closed my eyes from fear. The rain had destroyed most farms, the rice fields were flooded, and all of the crops were washed away. We finally reached 碇ヶ関 by crossing the Hirakawa on 2 large bridges. I was exhausted and went to bed at gloomy Yadoya, but Ito woke me with the news that the 2 bridges we had just crossed were falling down. In the pouring rain, Ito and I rushed to the riverbank where the whole village had gathered. We watched as all kinds of debris came rushing down the river. Then we noticed several huge pieces of timber, 30 feet long, rushing down. They were pieces of the first bridge. It must have collapsed. These massive logs crashed into the second bridge, and the second bridge fell down with a roar. Now the villages in this region are even more isolated than they were before, and we're stuck here until the river goes down enough to ford. Continued. This is how I pass the time in this village. I go out 3 times a day to see how low the river has gotten. I read, watch the children, and talk with the housemaster. I apply zinc lotion to several villagers with sore eyes 3 times a day. I watch the cooking in the daidokoro, and I visit the horses which are also in the daidokoro. I study every possible route to Aomori. This afternoon was fine and windy, so the boys flew kites. They are rectangular and made of paper on a bamboo frame. Almost all I decorate with the face of a historical figure. There was an interesting contest between 2 kites. The strings were covered with a broken glass, and each boy tried to cut the string of the other. When one finally succeeded, he got to keep the other kite. There were also boys who flew their kites while walking on stilts. Then there was a stilt race in which many children participated. Chapter 5. From Hakodate to Biratori. Hakodate, Yezo, August 1878. We've had a difficult journey from Kuroishi to Aomori. The rains began again, and hundreds of pack horses transporting salted fish had turned the roads into mud. But as we crossed our very last mountain ridge at Namioka, I looked down at the dark gray sea. This was Aomori Bay, and beyond it was Tsugaru Strait. My long land journey was almost over. A traveler we met said the boat for Hakodate was leaving that night, so I hired 4 men to drag, push, and lift me through the mud to reach Aomori. We bought our boat tickets at the Mitsubishi office and only had half an hour before the boat departed. Aomori is a town of gray houses built on a beach of gray sand. But the surrounding pine-covered hills and peat-smelling earth reminded me of home. The steamship was a little old boat of 17 tons. She was as clean and near as a yacht, but like a yacht, she was not made for bad weather. As we boarded the boat, the rain started again. The captain and crew were Japanese and didn't speak any English, but they were kind. My clothes were wet, so I was afraid of being cold throughout the night. But the captain covered me with several blankets. We set sail in the early evening when there was a strong wind. By 11, that wind turned into gale. The water was high and rough all around us. Much water entered the cabin. The captain came into the cabin every half an hour to check the barometer. He offered me some sugar for my tea and made a face and gesture meaning bad weather. The captain was worried, but he showed as much calmness as a Briton. After 14 hours of rough sailing, we reached Hakodate harbor. It was windy and rainy, and the Yezo mountains rose against dark clouds. The noises of the northern sea gave me a warm welcome to these shores. It was cold and gray, but somehow I was pleased by the northern look, and I felt like I was back home. I'm now at the church mission house, where Mr. and Mrs. Denin had kindly invited me to stay. I was terribly sad, covered in wet, muddy clothing, with my ruined gloves and boots. But I feel triumphant at having arrived here. I've survived all the obstacles of Japan's interior, and I've accomplished more than I thought I would. How musical the sound of the ocean is. The sound of the rain on the roof sounds like home. Every shivering from the cold feels refreshing and welcome. You cannot imagine how delightful it is to have a door with a lock and a bed instead of a cot.